SACP has welcomed the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority's approval of the Chinese Sinopharm Covid-19 vaccine. Sinopharm is the first vaccine developed by a non-Western country. For more on this, we're joined by the Communist Party spokesperson, Alex Mashilo. Mr. Mashilo, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. A great stride, you believe?
No, thank you very much. We must congratulate China as well as Cuba in the global south, because they set a good example. What happens in the world economy is that global south countries, when there are pandemics like COVID-19, or when there are events such as economic crisis, enter the terrain as procurers. That includes South Africa. What we saw in this instance was China and Cuba entering the terrain as countries that do research, development, and innovations. So they did not enter the terrain as countries that were looking for procuring COVID-19 vaccines produced, particularly in Western Europe and the United States of America. But they did their bit, and this is due to the fact that they invested in state capacity. This is one lesson that countries like South Africa should draw from the good examples set by Cuba and China, because you will know that Cuba also developed Soberana 1-2 coronavirus vaccines.
You speak of lessons that should be learned. We recently saw the opening of Nant SA by U.S. biotech billionaire Patrick Soon-Shiong, where vaccines will be produced not just for COVID-19, but for a number of other, situations that we could find ourselves in that require us to be properly capacitated. Is that not one thing to celebrate, at least?
That it's one thing to note, and it is also a welcome move. But remember that you are talking about global value chains here, and more value capture takes place at the apex of the global value chains, where research, development, and innovation activities take place. In this instance, South Africa entered as a contract manufacturer, meaning that it will be manufacturing vaccines, research developed, and whose innovation was undertaken by companies. And those companies in this instance will more likely be companies located in Western Europe and the United States. What we need to do as a country, if we are to learn from Cuba and China, while welcoming the good indication of South Africa entering vaccine manufacturing, is to increase our investment in research, development, and innovation, so that going forward, we also produce or develop, in fact, our own vaccines. So South Africa led a good battle under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa at the World Health Organization and in other forums for patents to be lifted so that we produce the vaccines without the barriers imposed by patents. That we commend, but internally we need to build a developmental state. For instance, if you look at another example, Cuba developed a medicine preventing the amputation of people with sugar diabetes. In countries like South Africa, if you have sugar diabetes and are exposed to certain conditions that necessitate amputations, you are amputated. The statistics of the number of people who are amputated in South Africa because of sugar diabetic conditions are actually shocking. While in fact Cuba has developed medicine that if you use that medicine, the chances are that there will be no need for amputation. But the way the approval of that medicine was treated in South Africa by SAPRA leaves much to be desired. And when that is taking place, South Africans are being amputated, they are losing their organs from the amputation. So we need to prevent things such as that one and return to a country that is developmental when attending to things such as disease control and fighting pandemics, as well as in other industrial development areas.
Is there a case to be made for intercontinental collaborations? The Africa Center for Disease Control has also done some really amazing work in terms of the pandemic and management oversight on the continent. But do you perhaps perceive that what we saw, for instance, with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, there's a case to be made of, South Africa working in conjunction with West African scientists, or do we already see something like that? It's just that we don't talk enough about that?
No, we need global collaboration. The problem is the political economy of the pharmaceutical industry, particularly the dominance of multinational corporations from Western Europe and the United States. Whether you like it or not, their entry in the development of vaccines and medicines is not saving human life as a priority. It is profit as priority. If you were to ask countries like South Africa and others that received vaccines, such as J&J, Pfizer, and others, and if you were to ask them to open up the conditions under which they procured that medication, you might be shocked. So we do need indeed intra-continental and not just intercontinental, but these things must put people first before profit.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon and helping us make sense of all of that.